Have you ever fallen in love with someone and felt like it was fate? As if your souls had already met, somewhere, sometime, before? Or maybe you keep falling for the same kind of person. The one who hurts you. The one who leaves. The one who mirrors your deepest wounds. Why does that happen? What if I told you? You don't really choose your partner. Your karma does. Yes, karma. Not punishment. Not superstition. But a mirror of the seeds you planted, maybe not in this life, but long before. This isn't about blame. It's about awakening. Because when you understand the karma behind your relationships, you stop suffering blindly and start loving wisely. Let's explore this together. So if you don't really choose your partner, what does that mean? Let's slow down and look deeper. When we hear the word karma, most of us think of something like divine justice, a force that punishes or rewards. But that's not what the Buddha taught. Karma simply means action. And not just action in the sense of doing something physical, but every thought, every intention, every word you speak, each one leaves a subtle imprint, like footprints in wet clay. And those imprints shape your experience, not just in this life, but across lifetimes. Karma isn't fate, it's cause and effect. Plant a seed, and eventually, you get the fruit. That's it. It's not personal. And it's not random. It's deeply lawful. Now think about love. Think about relationships. Think about the people you've been drawn to again and again. Even when your mind screamed, no, but your heart said, I can't help it. There's something magnetic, something beyond logic. And sometimes, something painful. The Buddha explained that our relationships are not accidents. The people we love, argue with, marry, or even run away from, are often karmic echoes. They appear in our lives because of seeds we've planted with them in the past. Maybe you hurt them. Maybe they hurt you. Maybe you helped each other. Maybe you made a promise, spoken or unspoken, that carried over into this life. That's why love can feel so powerful. That's why heartbreak can feel so unbearable. Because these aren't just new connections. They're continuations. Understanding this shifts everything. It doesn't mean we're stuck. It doesn't mean we're victims of karma. It means we have a chance, right now, to respond differently. To bring awareness, compassion, and wisdom into our relationships. To stop repeating old patterns. To stop attracting pain that mirrors past choices. Karma isn't about judgment. It's about awakening. And love, when seen through the lens of karma, becomes a path, not just of passion, but of transformation. And maybe, just maybe, that's why this person came into your life. So when someone enters your life and stirs up deep emotions, love, longing, joy, pain, it's not always about who they are right now. Sometimes, it's about what your shared karma is bringing to the surface. In Buddhism, we talk about karmic connections, or karmic bonds. These are the invisible threads that link us to certain people across lifetimes. That magnetic pull you feel toward someone. The instant comfort or tension. The sense that you've known them forever. All of that may be a signal that this isn't your first encounter. Some people enter our lives as blessings, others as lessons, and many are both. Maybe someone shows up who makes you feel seen, understood, completely at home. It's easy to believe that's just compatibility or luck. But often, it's a reflection of kind actions from the past, patience, compassion, sacrifice, that created a peaceful connection. When the fruit of that karma ripens, it feels like ease. Like harmony. That's a karmic reward. But just as often, someone appears who pushes every button. Who brings out your anger, your fear, your insecurity. You feel trapped, confused, and even though it's painful, you can't seem to walk away. That too is karma. That's the unfolding of something unresolved, an old injury, a betrayal, a power imbalance. It comes back, not to punish you, but to offer you a choice. Will you react the same way? Or will you respond with wisdom this time? It's not always easy to accept that, especially in romantic relationships, where we long for love to feel like a fairy tale. But spiritual maturity means looking at relationships through a wider lens. Not just asking, do they love me? Or, are they good for me? But, what are we here to learn together? And, what part of myself is this connection revealing? That shift in perspective brings healing. You begin to see even the hardest relationships as mirrors, not mistakes, as spiritual contracts, not random encounters. And when you begin to relate to people in this way, something changes inside. You stop blaming, you stop clinging, you start understanding. Because in the end, love isn't just about finding the right person. It's about meeting the person your karma brings, and learning how to love them. Or release them, with compassion. Once you begin to see your relationships as karmic reflections, you start to realize, every person who walks into your life is carrying something with them. And so are you. You're not meeting each other as blank slates. You're meeting as souls with histories. Some shared, some individual, but always with threads that bind. This is what the Buddha called karmic contracts. Not written on paper, but carried in the heart. These are deep energetic patterns, unfinished stories from the past, seeking completion in the present. And often, those stories unfold most intensely in intimate relationships. Think of the people you've loved the most deeply, and maybe suffered with the most deeply. Why does it happen that way? Because love doesn't just bring out the sweetness in us. It brings out the unfinished parts, the wounded parts, the impatient parts, the fearful parts. And in the mirror of someone close, we finally get to see what still needs to be healed. Sometimes, that healing happens through kindness, support, shared growth. But other times, it comes through friction, tension, even heartbreak. And yet, both are karmically valid. Both are part of the journey. Now, it's important to remember, karma isn't a jail sentence. Just because you have a karmic tie to someone doesn't mean you're bound to them forever. Karma brings people together, but how you respond is up to you. That's where free will enters. That's where your spiritual practice matters. You can stay and grow. You can leave and forgive. But either way, if you do it with awareness, you're changing the karma. You're writing a different ending to the story. Too often, we judge relationships as good or bad based on how they make us feel. But karmic relationships can't be measured that simply. Some of the people who hurt us the most are playing the exact role we need to awaken. Some who love us deeply may still not be meant to stay. What matters is not the label, but the lesson. When you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this showing me? That's when karma begins to shift. That's when you stop repeating cycles and start transforming them. Because karma isn't about being stuck in the past. It's about waking up in the present. And maybe that's the real reason you were drawn to this person. Not just to love them, but to grow through them. As we continue to explore the deeper dimensions of love and karma, a truth begins to emerge, one that's both humbling and liberating. Not all love is rooted in peace. Some love arises from debt. This might be difficult to accept, especially in a culture where we're told that love should always feel good, that it should be effortless and magical. But real love, especially karmic love, is rarely so simple. Sometimes, what we call love is actually a karmic repayment unfolding in real time. You meet someone, and the connection is instant, intense, even overwhelming. It feels like destiny. And in a way, it is, but not necessarily in the way you imagine. That pull you feel may not be coming from the heart, but from the weight of unfinished business. You may be drawn not by romance, but by obligation. Something unresolved between you is seeking closure. It could be pain you caused them long ago, or pain they caused you. Either way, the karmic tie is real and strong. And in this life, it's trying to balance itself out. That's why some relationships feel like a storm you can't escape. Because they aren't meant to last forever. They're meant to teach you, awaken you, or release you. The Buddha never said love would always be easy. But he did teach that love becomes suffering when it's mixed with attachment, ignorance, or craving. That's when we confuse possession with connection. When we cling to someone not because we truly see them, but because we fear losing them. And often, that fear is karmic in nature. It comes from something we lost before, something we couldn't let go of. The good news is, karma doesn't demand that we stay in pain. It invites us to be conscious. If you're in a relationship that feels heavy, cyclical, or confusing, ask yourself gently, is this love rooted in freedom? Or in debt? Am I staying because my heart is open? Or because I'm trying to fix something that's already past? When you recognize that not all love is meant to be held onto forever, you begin to breathe again. You begin to release the guilt, the pressure, the illusion, and in that release, karma starts to dissolve. Because the goal of karmic love isn't to trap you. It's to free you from old patterns, old pain, and the unconscious ties that have shaped your past. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is let go with compassion. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but with deep understanding that the lesson has been learned, the debt has been paid, and your soul is ready to move forward. So if not all love is about joy, and some of it is karmic debt, what happens when that debt plays out inside something as sacred and intimate as a marriage? This is where things get even more complex, and even more revealing. Marriage isn't just a social contract. From a karmic perspective, it's a powerful container. It's one of the most intense environments in which karma ripens. The person you choose, or rather, the person your karma draws to you, becomes a mirror, a trigger, and often, a catalyst for transformation. And what unfolds in that shared space? That's where your deeper patterns show up. Sometimes marriage brings healing. You might be with someone who helps you grow, who reflects the goodness you've cultivated in past lives, kindness, patience, honesty. There's ease, partnership, and mutual support. That's karma, too, a beautiful result of seeds planted long ago. But other times, marriage is not so peaceful. There may be conflict, betrayal, power struggles, or emotional distance. In those moments, it's tempting to ask, did I choose wrong? But from a Buddhist view, the more important question is, what karma is playing out here? And how can I respond with wisdom? Because marriage doesn't hide your karma, it exposes it. If you've carried anger in your heart, your partner will reveal it. If you've avoided responsibility, they'll challenge you. If you've harmed others in past lifetimes, the pain may return, not as punishment, but as an opportunity to make things right. That's why the Buddha didn't promise that love or marriage would be easy. He encouraged awareness, mindfulness, and compassion in every interaction, not just because it makes relationships smoother, but because it turns daily life into spiritual practice. Every moment of frustration becomes a moment to awaken. Every misunderstanding becomes a doorway to deeper understanding, if we let it. This doesn't mean you have to stay in an unhealthy situation. Buddhism doesn't teach blind endurance. But it does invite us to look beneath the surface before we walk away. Are we running from pain, or from the chance to grow through it? Sometimes, we're meant to stay and transform together. Sometimes, we're meant to part with clarity and grace. What matters most is not the outcome, but the consciousness you bring to the path. Because in the end, marriage, like all relationships, is a field of karma. And whether it blossoms or breaks down, it can still be a vehicle for liberation, if you approach it with open eyes and an open heart. So how do we begin to work with this? If karma shows up in our relationships, especially the closest ones, then how can we shift it? How do we stop repeating the same patterns with different faces? How do we break the cycle? It starts with awareness. Most of us go through relationships on autopilot, reacting from our wounds, from our past, from our unconscious habits. We say things we don't mean. We defend, withdraw, attack, or cling, not because we want to, but because we're operating from old karmic conditioning. If we want to change the results, we have to interrupt the pattern. And that takes mindfulness. Mindfulness is the pause, the breath before the reaction. It's when you feel the heat rise in an argument, and instead of lashing out, you take a step back and ask, what is this really about? It's when you notice your need to control or please or disappear, and instead of falling into it, you just stay. You stay with the discomfort. You stay with the awareness. That's where karma begins to shift. But awareness alone isn't enough. The Buddha taught that wholesome action is the antidote to unwholesome karma. In relationships, that means responding with compassion instead of blame, with truth instead of manipulation, with boundaries that protect love, rather than walls that block it. It's hard. It takes training. But every conscious response plants a new seed, one that will bear different fruit. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful of those seeds. Not forced forgiveness, not denial, but the kind that comes when you understand that the other person is also caught in their karma. Just like you stop needing to punish them. You stop needing them to suffer. And in doing so, you free yourself. Gratitude is another. When you can look at a difficult relationship and say, thank you for showing me what I needed to see, even if it hurt. Something inside you begins to open. The pain doesn't vanish, but the resentment starts to loosen. That's the beginning of healing. And then, there's letting go. Not always physically. Sometimes you stay, but you let go of your need to control, to be right, to be loved in a certain way. Other times, letting go means walking away, but with kindness. Not bitterness. With clarity. Not confusion. Letting go becomes a sacred act. Not a failure. This is the path of transforming karma. Not avoiding it. Not blaming it. But meeting it with presence and heart. Because when you stop living from the past, you begin to create something new. And slowly, relationship by relationship, you start to become free. As you begin to shift your karma in relationships through mindfulness, compassion, and letting go, you naturally start asking a deeper question. How do I plant better seeds? How do I create the kind of karma that brings love, not pain? Connection, not conflict? Peace, not drama? The answer isn't complicated, but it does require consistency. It starts with how you show up, in every interaction, in every moment, whether you're with a partner or not. Because karma isn't just created when you fall in love. It's created in the everyday. In the way you speak to someone when you're tired. In the way you handle disappointment. In the way you see others. Do you judge them? Use them? Push them away? Or do you treat them with presence, respect, and care? If you want love rooted in peace, plant seeds of honesty. Speak your truth gently, even when it's uncomfortable. If you want a partner who respects you, practice respecting others, even in small things, even when no one is watching. If you want to feel safe in love, then be a safe space for someone else. Not perfectly, but intentionally. The Buddha often emphasized the importance of intention. It's not just what you do, it's why you do it. If you give love just to get something back, that's still rooted in craving. But if you love from a place of generosity, without clinging, then that seed is pure. And pure seeds grow into beautiful, lasting fruit. Another powerful seed is integrity. Be who you say you are. Honor your word. Don't manipulate to get attention or affection. Don't ghost someone just because you're afraid. Each time you act with integrity, you build a karmic field that naturally attracts people who value the same. And then there's self-love. Not the self-indulgent kind, but the kind that says, I matter too. When you care for yourself, when you set healthy boundaries, when you stop settling for less than truth, you teach the universe how to treat you. And in that space, the right kind of relationships begin to arise. Ones that don't come from desperation or karmic residue, but from clarity. This is how you create good karma in love. Not by trying to control outcomes, but by becoming someone who lives in alignment with truth and compassion. When that becomes your foundation, your relationships, present and future, will reflect it. And perhaps, in the quiet unfolding of each conscious choice, you'll discover that love isn't something you have to chase anymore. It simply arrives because you've already become the kind of person it belongs to. And when you begin living this way, consciously, gently, with awareness of the karma you're creating, you start to notice something subtle but powerful. Your relationships change, not just because different people show up, but because you are showing up differently. The mirror of karma reflects not just the past, but the present. And when your present is rooted in compassion, wisdom, and clarity, the reflections it sends back are softer, kinder, more awake. This is the beauty of the Buddha's teaching. Karma is not a prison sentence, it's an invitation. An invitation to understand, to grow, and to transform. You don't have to be ruled by your old patterns. You don't have to keep repeating the same cycles of heartbreak and confusion. Every moment, every breath, is a new chance to plant a different seed. And this applies not just to romance, but to all forms of connection. Friends, family, strangers, even the way you treat yourself. Every interaction is part of your karmic field. Every act of patience, every choice to speak with kindness instead of anger. Every time you forgive rather than resent, you're rewriting your karmic story. In real time, the more clearly you see this, the more deeply you understand that love isn't about possession or perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up for yourself and others with a heart that's willing to learn. Sometimes that means staying. Sometimes it means walking away. But always, it means choosing to respond with awareness instead of reaction. So yes, maybe you didn't choose your partner in the way you thought. Maybe it wasn't fate or romance or luck, but karma. Unfolding. But now, you do have a choice. You can meet that karma with mindfulness. You can respond with courage and softness. You can break free from old stories and begin writing a new one. Because love is not just something that happens to us. It's something we do with the full awareness of who we are and who we're becoming. When you live that way, love becomes less about what you get and more about what you give. Less about filling a void and more about awakening to your own wholeness. And from that place, quiet, grounded, awake, you'll start to see the people who enter your life not as mistakes or saviors, but as mirrors and teachers, each one reflecting where you are and how far you've come. That's not fate. That's not luck. That's not a cosmic accident. That's karma. And now, you are its author.